My friends, welcome back to the Follow Your Path channel. I'm psyched to be here with you. I greet you on 1111. That might mean something to you, it might not. For me, that was the number at the beginning of my awakening process that I would see all the time. My awareness would always get pulled to the clock when it would say 1111. License plates, billboards, you name it. I was very drawn to that sequence of numbers. And how cool is it when you start to come onto this path and you start to awaken to the truth of reality and what's inside of you, that life starts to communicate back to you. It's like, oh, I see you seeing me. And that's when things start to take the shape of like Harry Potter a little bit. We realize like, oh wow, this is Hogwarts in the midst of the Muggle world, because there's people living in so many different dimensions and different realities and experiences based on their level of consciousness. But if you find yourself on this channel, obviously you are somebody who is following their path. You are somebody who is here to know themselves, to discover the depth of what's in here. Because for many of us, we were living as an iceberg, and that analogy just works so well. Surface level, you think that you're this identity, and then something happens, and all of a sudden you realize there is a lot more to you, far more than what was on the surface. And that's what this channel is all about, supporting you in that discovery process. So, greetings on 1111. We've got a very powerful message for you today. And this one's going to really land if you have been somebody struggling with or dealing with for a while the limiting negative belief, very common, shared by many of us on this path, and that is the I'm not good enough. But before we get into that, let's lay the tracks a little bit here. So first of all, I just want to say it may not be a surprise to many of you, but we find ourselves in the midst of a massive global awakening on our planet. Many people are being asked to get on the dance floor and participate and be part of this process instead of being on the sidelines, distracted or trying to hold on to old stuff that's not working anymore. Life is saying, hey, come dance with me here, right? Into the unknown. So that's happening right now. And as part of that process, the hero's archetype is activating in many people across the planet. The archetype that kicks in within you in your consciousness when you go through the breakdown period, when you get to that point of you realize you're not a caterpillar anymore, just shuffling on the ground and consuming and just wandering around aimlessly. Like, no, no, no. You start to have that little consideration. Oh yeah, there's something way more going on here. I also want to say too that this is a very deep and sacred process, and it's not easy, and it takes courage. It's gonna take everything that you have, really. And what could be more of a fun game than that? Even though it sucks at times and it can be brutal, we're here to know who we are, the depth of what we can accomplish, what we can handle, what energies we can alchemize. For our soul, that's a fun game worth playing. For our ego, it's the worst game in the world, right? But that is the mask that we're taking off. That's the character that is dying, and we can either go through that process with grace and humility and surrender and acceptance, or we can go kicking and screaming and we can be dragged through the mud. So this channel is an invitation to bring some grace into your experience. Allow, as I've said in other videos, these cycles to take place and for life to remove the things that are not you anymore. And when I say this is a sacred process, I mean that it really requires your attention. It's worth your attention and presence to be with it, not something to just skip over and try to get away from and distract yourself from, which is what a lot of people do. This needs your full attention, right? It is a big deal. So really, you could say that this is a journey of worthiness. right? There's a lots of layers of worthiness that you experience on this earth plane. And you realize that when you go up a floor in worthiness, there's many other floors. So it's a constant journey where you will reach the gatekeeper of each floor where you will be tested, which is simply an opportunity to embody that greater worthiness, which is tied to your knowingness of your divine self. And then you ascend. But for many people, they get stuck on a floor at a certain level of worthiness, or I should say unworthiness, and they're looping. And so this video, and they loop in the I'm not good enough. And so this video is going to be all about what that is and how we can go beyond it. So it doesn't have to be this parasite sucking our life force anymore. So as I've talked about on this channel before, when you are on this hero's journey, part of this is you're gonna have to face your negative beliefs, your limitations that you inherited as a child, that you accepted as true, that obviously are really hurting your experience as an adult. You didn't choose that. You wouldn't have chosen it. It was just something that got in there, and I'm not good enough is one of them. And think of in your life over time how much life force the I'm not good enough has gotten from you. That is, I would say, one of the primary weapons of the ego, of the false character that you always identified with and thought yourself to be, the narrator that has been in your head that had you convinced that that was it or that it was you. Okay, we're starting to realize it's not you. That's the voice of a narrator who is a false character that is built on a foundation of wounds, pain, and coping, and doesn't realize its divine true nature. Right? It's the animal, it's the lower nature, which again, we're not going away from where this is about integrating. So I'm not good enough. Let's go deeper. So as I've said, this is probably one of the primary weapons of the ego to emotionally pull you back under its control. Because when it's threatened, when that identity gets threatened as you're going through this awakening process, it's going to really turn the volume up on those negative beliefs that it has been using to steer you like a puppet because it knows how effective it is. You've given into it your whole life. You've accepted the I'm not good enough. It's like you take two steps forward, the I'm not good enough echo comes in and it pulls you back emotionally into, well, maybe I'm not good enough. And that also allows you to not have to deal with discomfort. That allows you to be in a place where you don't have to face off with the things that are challenging, with the bosses at the end of the level of worthiness that we're on for this hero's journey. And so, as we can see, we're in this process right now where life is simply removing all of the things that we're not. And that is the death process, which you could call the dark night. All the breakdowns are going on, relationships are falling apart, jobs are being taken away, and it's creating a lot of fear. So as that fear is going on, a lot of times when we go into fight or flight, it's like that character really takes its seat and it strongly pulls us back into that identity because it uses fear for control. And the more that that character is threatened, the ego, it's going to use these weapons. So you're going to notice the I'm not good enough come up a lot. So we got to know how to deal with this thing. We got to know how to navigate this as it comes into our now space and into our nervous system. One of the attributes of the false self, as maybe many of you know, it's this sense of it's never enough. It's unsatiable. The ego is just in this constant loop of I need more. There will never be enough for that part of you, that part of us. It will never have enough money. It will never have enough love. It will never have enough security. It will never have enough anything. It's always going to strive for more, right? And if you look at those who have placed the control systems on the planet, they are ruled by this greed. And if you can't see outside of that, then and that's taking over you, you're always going to be in that place. It's like that famous quote by Rockefeller that was like a reporter asked him, "Hey, Mr. Rockefeller, like how much is enough money?" And I think he said something like, "Hmm, just a little more." And that's what that is, right? Never enough. So our logic, first of all, can just put a stop on that and say, well, okay, if we were to measure that, what is actually good enough? When will I know that it's become good enough? And you might say something like, you know, $1 million, I'll feel secure enough. When I get this job, I'll feel good enough about myself. When I have this kind of partner, I'll feel good enough about myself. And what that's doing is, which is part of the conditioning, it's putting the focus out there on other things, other people, other circumstances in order for you to feel okay, in order to validate and give you certainty and safety. And as we know, a major part of this hero's journey is you reclaiming that and you validating yourself, you empowering you, and not needing any of those things to do that for you. Because if you rely on that, you will never have any sense of control in your life. You will never have any sense of stability because those things out there will come and go. They'll fade in and they'll fade out. And if your internal security and happiness and well-being relies on that, that's very shaky ground to be on. So as I said, the I'm not good enough belief, we've been feeding that our entire lives. In the shamanic realm, in the realm of energy, that belief is a conscious entity. And that entity needs sustenance. It needs life force. It needs your attention in order to survive. So it's going to try to pull that from you. And you could look at this like a weed in your garden. And this is not something that you will learn in traditional, therapy or self-help books, anything like that. It those things discount the realm of energy. Negative beliefs and also positive beliefs, any beliefs that we've been giving life force to and accepting is true for a long time, they are entities. They are weeds that will seek your life force. And if you're feeding them, if you're giving into them, giving them sustenance, they're going to hang around. So you've got to recognize this. You've got to see that I'm not good enough is not only a weapon by the ego's main weapon, but also it's an entity in itself. You've got to find a way to starve that weed and not give it any life force. And also, too, I say this, and it might feel a little bit, combative, like you're in this inner battle with yourself, which is true to some degree, but really from the zoomed out lens, this is your wounded child. Can you imagine how dark that is for a little kid and he's not able to, express it. He's not able to like really talk to people about it. And he or she is just like stumbling internally in this darkness of I'm not good enough as a child. Like feel the density of that in your body, like to walk around as a little innocent kid and be like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for them. I'm not good enough for any of these things. Like that shit is dark. And so now as the conscious creator, the soul, you can see that part of you. And that's where compassion and wisdom comes in, where it's like you learn to reparent that. You learn to let that part know, like, hey, you are worthy. You are good enough by virtue of you just being here. You were selected by life itself, by God of the universe. You're an expression, a component of that. You're a ray of the great sun chosen to be here during, I might add, a very special time. You have things in you that the creator wanted to be a part of this major transition. And so if you discount that, that's a big deal. And if you don't have awareness of it, you will. And you'll see people around you lost in the I'm not good enough, especially when they start to go on the hero's journey and they begin to recognize that they are the creator of their experience. And then it's time to create. And then you have to go through like, my creations aren't good enough. No one cares. That's a whole other thing in itself. So there's going to be a lot of different stages where you might think that you've starved out the weed of I'm not good enough, and then you'll see it pop up in another place. And as long as you can see it for what it is, you know not to give it any life force. You catch it and you immediately reparent yourself. You give compassion to that child, right? That's still in there, that little piece that maybe was really deep down that has now floated up that you get to be present with and that you get to interact with. This is knowing yourself, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I harp on this so much. You are an iceberg. There's so much to you below the surface, and as you move forth on this path, those things will start to bubble up, and that is beautiful. Okay, so now we got to bring in the imagination because it's the imagination that's going to allow you to start to dream and imagine yourself as the good enough character, the worthy character, the you that is life itself that doesn't argue with what is and knows who they are and brings that consciousness into everything that they're doing. You're starting to now see yourself existing and living in a permanent place of well-beingness, of worthiness. What does that feel like? How do you hold your body in that energy? What do your eyes look like when you're looking at people, when you look at yourself in the mirror? How do you speak? Are you speaking from your chest, from a place of capable, stable, certain, confident? This is what you get to build. This is what you begin to imagine yourself to be and start to construct a new identity around the truth. So you're not feeding the I'm not good enough anymore. And the story begins to change because your life force is now authoring a new story. Your life force and attention is going to the fruits in the garden, the plants that will bear fruits. And you realize that your imagination, as everything that we see on this planet first began in the imagination, that that's you. You're inventing, you're creating in the moment the you that you want to be, not what the character thought that you were, not what the ego thinks that it is. That's what we're letting go of. That's what we're integrating. I'm not good enough is kind of like a filter that you put on, right? It's like putting on this 3D headset where now you're looking through these goggles and all you can see are things that support that story of I'm not good enough. All you can see are circumstances that allow that character, the false you, to feel right. And here's the thing, that part of us would bathe in a swamp of sewage the rest of the way gladly if it got to feel like it was right. If it got to say things like, see, I told you, see, I'm not worthy, see, I truly am not good enough, look what happened. Not realizing that you're only going to be able to get that when you're wearing that headset. So eventually you'll get to a point on your hero's journey where you take that off and you put on a headset of I am. I am worthy. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth, and I know how I serve. I'm connected to all that is. I am a part and one with all of this, the stars, the sun, the all of it. That is inside of me, and I am it. And you align with that, that's a different headset with a whole set of different experiences that come with that. And now your filter is going to look for more evidence to support your worthiness. You will get people reflecting that worthiness back to you. And you didn't do anything out there to change it. You did it all in here. And once you start seeing that, that's when things start getting good because you're like, oh, this conditioning around I got to change and fix things out there. That's not even true. That's not how this works. It's in here. as so many great teachers have been saying since the beginning of time. So many books that have said this, so many YouTube channels that have said this. We'll all say it a million times in our own unique ways. I hope this one resonates with you because it took me a while to really get that because my logic was, my intellect was not accepting it. It was trying to do the linear approach. It was trying to navigate things based on what I had learned from the conditioning of society, the model of the world from my parents, all these different things. I had to let all of those towers come down and then let God come in, let the universe come in and say, "Hey, this is a dance with you and I'm going to show you, and we're gonna build back up from truth who you really are, which is right here in this moment. What do you prefer? What do you choose? It's no longer this automatic I'm not good enough. No, now you have the wisdom to see that happening in your consciousness. You see the weed that it is, and you recognize, okay, that's not getting life force anymore. That's an unsatiable aspect of my lower nature. And mastery is giving loving compassion to that part, again, wounded child, and coming back to alignment with the I am. That's the new story that's being written, folks. So, this is a wonderful time to free yourself of that trap, of that prison. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's going to require everyday presence and attention. Again, this is a very sacred process that's going on. Don't discount it. Don't distract yourself and avoid it and fill your day with things to do. Like this needs your intimacy to be with it, to allow it to unfold, or else it's delaying the process, and then you're gonna have to experience a longer period of I'm not good enough and actually believing it, and then getting a reality that is attached to that because you got that headset on. So on this wonderful, majestic, magical 1111 portal, my prayer, my friends, is that you receive this in a way that gets you to look at the I'm not good enough archetype tied to your false character, that life is lovingly trying to pull away, that life is removing for you right now. And the invitation is to let it happen. Do it with grace. Have compassion for yourself. Be patient. Be kind to yourself. You went a long time thinking that was you. You had to go through many years as a child in a very dark place. That was the I'm not good enough. That didn't know any better and didn't have the wisdom to soothe yourself, to understand any of these things. But now here you are. And that doesn't need to rule over you anymore. So that is the message for today. Duh, you are good enough. You are worthy. You're here. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You're here because you got something epic in you. You have a song that was meant to be sung and expressed during this time to contribute to the unfolding that's going on in our world. You have a light that's going to shine for the people around you, and you're going to have to allow a lot of things to be swept away that are not for you anymore. And recognize when the I'm not good enough comes in and give it a laugh, but also give it a compassionate holding, a smile, say, I see you. And now the attention and life force energy goes to I am worthy. Here I am, present in the moment. I am worthy. And that's the direction that we're going in. So I want to say I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. If you made it till the end, you know I'm talking to you. And I would appreciate any likes, subscribes, comments, interactions, because that feeds life force into the channel and that helps it to grow and build and get out to more people. So simply if you found value from this video, from any of the videos, that's all I ask. Subscribe, give a like, And I'm actually very curious. I love to interact with people in the comment section. So however this landed for you, if you have anything you want to share on it, any insights, any of your personal experience with it, please put it in the comments. I will respond to everything that's in there. And this really gives us a beautiful sense of community where we get to interact in this energy. And that's why I made this. So let's use it. As always, my wonderful friends, peace within is peace without.